All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking another deep dive, and this time it's into the world of sales.
Ooh, sales.
And not just any sales, though. We're talking about the strategies of a guy who holds the Guinness World Record for selling the most cars.
Wow.
His name is Joe Girard, and from what I hear, he sold over 13,000 cars.
15,000.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. We're going to be dissecting an audio recording of his called How to Sell Anything to Anybody 2.mp3. And
So what's interesting is that his approach wasn't about being that classic pushy salesperson. You know, the one
right, yeah.
Joe Girard built a system based on psychology and strategy, and that's what we're going to be unpacking today.
That's what I'm really interested in. The system, I mean, 13,000 cars. There's got to be something more to it than just being a smooth talker.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I heard he had some pretty unique techniques, like a Ferris wheel for managing prospects, bird dogs to find leads.
Okay.
Plus, apparently his honesty policy is, well, a little bit flexible.
Interesting.
I'm curious to see how that works.
Right. Yes, his approach is full of intriguing ideas and techniques. The exciting thing is that these principles can be adapted to almost any field, even if you're not selling cars.
Right.
It's about understanding the psychology behind influencing decisions and actions.
Okay, so let's dive into this Ferris wheel concept.
Yeah.
What exactly was Joe Girard talking about?
Picture a Ferris wheel, slowly rotating. As seats empty at the top, representing a completed sale, new prospects are loaded at the bottom. This constant motion represents the way Joe Girard managed his prospects, continuously moving them towards being ready to buy.
So it's not about making a sale right away, but more about nurturing leads over time.
Exactly. He meticulously kept records of every interaction, knowing when to reach out to someone who might not be ready to buy now, but could be later. It's about consistent follow-up. He wasn't afraid to throw spaghetti at the wall, so to speak.
Wait, throw spaghetti at the wall? What does that even mean?
He meant casting a wide net, knowing that some of it would stick. It's a numbers game. He had over 9,000 customer names in his file. By staying in touch and building those relationships, he increases chances of turning prospects into buyers. Just like in marketing, sending out a lot of messages means some are bound to resonate.
I see. So it's about volume and persistence. But how did he even get so many leads in the first place? I mean, did he just stand on a street corner handing out business cards?
He was actually a master at leveraging existing networks. He believed everyone you interact with, friends, family, even the cashier at the grocery store, could be a potential lead or connect you to someone who is...
So it's all about making those connections and then nurturing them.
Yeah.
And I think this ties into what he called his Law of 250, right?
Precisely. The Law of 250 states that every interaction, positive or negative, impacts 250 people in that person's network. This makes every interaction a potential opportunity to build your reputation and reach.
Wow, 250 people. That puts things in perspective. Suddenly, small talk at a party doesn't seem so trivial anymore. So how can our listeners apply this Law of 250 to their own lives?
Think of it like ripples in a pond. Every action you take creates ripples that extend outwards. By being mindful of your interactions and consciously building positive relationships, you can create positive ripples that expand your network and influence.
That's a really powerful way to think about it. It makes you realize that networking isn't just about attending events or collecting business cards. It's about being genuinely engaged with everyone you meet.
Okay.
So we've got this huge network. We're nurturing those relationships. What's the next step in Joe Girard's system?
He was known for his unique approach to business cards. He didn't just hand them out. He strategically distributed them everywhere, even tossing handfuls into crowds at sporting events.
Hold on, throwing business cards at people? That sounds a little chaotic, doesn't it?
It might seem unorthodox, but he understood the psychology behind it. It was about sparking curiosity and creating a memorable experience. People would pick up his cards, intrigued by the unconventional approach. Plus, he had his picture printed on his cards, which made him more memorable and approachable. It was a way to stand out in a sea of generic cards.
So it's like a marketing campaign in itself. It's not just about giving someone your information. It's about making a lasting impression. And I guess the same principle could apply to any kind of outreach, right? Like a unique email subject line or a personalized message on LinkedIn.
Exactly. It's about finding creative ways to capture attention and make yourself memorable. In a world bombarded with information, you need to stand out from the crowd.
Okay, so we've got networking, business cards. Now let's talk about direct mail. Everyone gets so much junk mail these days. I can't imagine that's very effective anymore. How did Joe Girard make it work for him?
He was a master of personalized direct mail. Instead of generic flyers, he sent out 12 uniquely designed mailings per year, each with a personal touch. He even timed them strategically to avoid coinciding with bill payments. Imagine receiving a cheery postcard in your mailbox amongst a pile of bills.
Yeah, that would definitely catch my attention. It's like a little ray of sunshine in a sea of financial obligations.
So, what kind of messages was he sending? Was he pushing car deals?
Actually, he did a soft sell approach, focusing on building rapport and positive associations rather than hard selling cars. He sent messages like, Happy New Year, I like you, or Happy Valentine's Day, I like you.
I like you. That's so simple, but I can see how it worked. It's unexpected and disarming. It makes you feel like he's genuinely interested in building a relationship, not just making a sale.
Exactly. And by sending these personalized messages throughout the year, he was staying top of mind without being pushy. This consistency kept him in the forefront of his customers' minds, so when they were ready to buy a car, he was the first person they thought of. It's like planting seeds that will eventually blossom. But 12 mailings a year, that sounds like a lot of work. Did he have a team of elves helping him out?
This is where his bird dog system comes into play. It's like having a network of helpers out there scouting for potential leads.
Okay, bird dogs. You've got to explain this one. It sounds intriguing.
He incentivized people to bring him leads by offering a $50 reward for every successful referral. Think about it. Barbers, loan officers, anyone who interacts with a lot of people could potentially become a bird dog. He even encouraged new car buyers to spread the word, instantly turning them into potential bird dogs by giving them stacks of his business cards.
A $50 reward, that's a pretty sweet deal. I can see why people would be eager to participate. But were there any legal or ethical concerns with that kind of incentive system?
He was aware of the potential issues with cash rewards, so he also got creative with offering things like free dinners or car services. The main goal was to build a network of people who were constantly on the lookout for potential car buyers.
So it's like building a team, but instead of employees, you've got this network of bird dogs out there working for you.
And this brings us to a really interesting aspect of Joe Girard's approach, his philosophy on honesty in sales. This is where things get a little tricky, because from what I've heard, he wasn't afraid to bend the truth a bit.
He believed in being truthful, but he also recognized that sometimes a little white lie could help move a customer towards a sale. He used them strategically to keep the conversation flowing and build momentum, but never in a way that would damage trust or put the customer at a disadvantage.
Okay, I'm really curious to hear some examples of this, because it sounds like a slippery slope. How do you know where to draw the line?
Let's say a customer calls looking for a specific car with a particular feature, and Joe knows that exact car isn't currently available. Instead of saying, we don't have that, he might say, yep, we have one just like that, come on down. So he's not exactly lying, but he's not being completely truthful either. He's enticing them to come to the dealership, where he can then show them other options. I guess the idea is that once they're there, he can work his magic and find them a car they'll love, even if it wasn't the exact one they initially requested.
Exactly. He understood that most people were more focused on getting a new car now, rather than waiting weeks for a specific configuration. By getting them in the door, he had the opportunity to connect with them, build rapport, and find a solution that worked for both parties.
It's a risky strategy, but I can see the logic behind it. He's creating an opportunity, but it hinges on his ability to then deliver on that promise. He can't just bait and switch them with something completely different.
Right, and that's where his emphasis on building trust and rapport comes into play. He wasn't just trying to trick people into buying cars they didn't want. He was trying to create a win-win situation where everyone felt good about the outcome.
It's a fascinating approach and definitely something to think about. It makes you question the traditional notions of honesty in sales. Is it always black and white, or is there some gray area?
That's a great question, and something we can explore further as we delve deeper into his techniques. The key takeaway here is that Joe Girard understood the psychology of sales. He knew how to influence decisions without resorting to pressure tactics, and he was always looking for ways to create a positive experience for his customers.
So we've covered the Ferris wheel, the bird dogs, and his flexible approach to honesty. What's next on our Joe Girard journey?
We've laid the groundwork, but now we need to explore how he actually closed those deals once he had the customer in front of him. He had very specific strategies for creating the right atmosphere and guiding the conversation.
Okay, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. I'm ready to learn how Joe Girard turned those prospects into car buyers.
And that's exactly what we'll be diving into next time.
Welcome back, everyone. Last time we left off with Joe Girard getting the customer through the door, and I'm really eager to dig into what he did next. I mean, we've got the Ferris wheel turning, the bird dog sniffing out leads, and a healthy dose of strategic honesty. But how did Joe actually seal the deal?
It's fascinating how he approached that critical moment. Remember, we talked about his philosophy of let him, don't make him. That really comes into play here.
Right, he wanted the customer to feel in control, not pressured. So I'm guessing he wasn't slamming his fist on the desk and demanding they sign.
He understood that creating the right atmosphere was key. He was very conscious of the image people often have of car salesmen, pushy, slick, maybe a little too flashy, and he knew he had to counter that perception.
So no power suits or fancy watches for Joe Girard. That's interesting.
He actually made a point of dressing down, choosing attire that was more relatable to his customer base, who were mainly working class folks. He wanted to create a sense of connection like he was one of them.
I can see how that would make people feel more at ease. It's like, hey, this guy gets me. He's not trying to intimidate me with a fancy suit.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about his clothes. He also paid close attention to his office environment. He kept things clean and clutter-free, avoiding distractions like those colorful brochures and color charts. He wanted the focus to be solely on the interaction, the human connection.
It's like he was saying, let's just talk, you and me, no pressure, no distractions. I'm starting to get a pattern here. Everything Joe Girard did was deliberate, a carefully crafted part of his system.
You're catching on. He even applied this mindful approach to his interactions. He was a master of small talk. But not just any small talk. He would compliment people's clothes, ask about their families, even pick up on small details like their eyeglasses. He was making people feel seen and heard.
So he wasn't just making idle chit-chat. He was genuinely engaging with people, making them feel valued. That's such a powerful skill and something we can all learn from, whether we're in sales or not.
Absolutely, and he wasn't afraid to offer compliments, even if they stretched the truth a little. Remember, it's all about creating a positive atmosphere and disarming any potential resistance.
Okay, but there's a fine line between flattery and coming across as insincere. How did he manage to walk that tightrope?
It all came down to authenticity. He was genuinely interested in people, and his desire to connect with them shone through. He wasn't just going through the motions, he was building relationships. And that's where he excelled, turning fear into trust.
That's such a crucial point. Buying a car is a big decision, a significant financial investment. People are naturally apprehensive, afraid of being pressured or taken advantage of.
Exactly. J. Girard understood that, and he was determined to alleviate those fears. He would say, let him, don't make him. Meaning, he wanted the customer to feel like they were in control, making the decision on their own terms.
So it's almost counterintuitive. By giving them space, by not pushing too hard, he was actually making them more likely to buy.
That's the brilliance of his approach. He recognized that pressure creates resistance. If someone felt cornered or manipulated, they were more likely to walk away. And he understood that losing a customer meant potentially losing 250 more, according to his law of 250.
Right, that ripple effect. Every interaction has far-reaching consequences. So he's creating this relaxed atmosphere, building rapport, subtly guiding the conversation. But at some point, you have to talk numbers right. How did he handle that delicate transition?
He knew that price was a major sticking point for most buyers, and he was willing to be flexible. He would often offer a discount, even if it meant taking a smaller commission. He was playing the long game.
It's like investing in a relationship. A happy customer is more likely to come back for another car down the road, and they're more likely to tell their friends and family about their positive experience. So it makes sense to prioritize that long-term value over a quick profit.
Exactly. He understood that building a loyal customer base was far more valuable than squeezing every last dollar out of a single sale. And that brings us back to the question of honesty. We talked about his willingness to bend the truth a little to get someone in the door. But did that ever backfire?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I can see how those little white lies could snowball into something much bigger if you're not careful.
He was always careful to avoid outright lies, especially about things the customer could easily verify later. He knew that damaging trust would be detrimental to his long-term success.
So he was strategic about his white lies, using them to smooth the process and create momentum, but never in a way that would jeopardize the relationship. He was playing a delicate game, but he's a master of it.
That's a great way to put it. And this brings us to another important aspect of his approach planning and analysis. He wasn't just winging it, he had a system for everything.
This is where things get really interesting for me. I love hearing about the systems and processes behind success. What did Joe Girard's planning routine look like?
Every morning, he would outline his goals for the day. Whether it was making calls, sending out mailings, or meeting with prospects, he had a roadmap for success.
So he was setting intentions and creating a plan of action, but I imagine things don't always go according to plan, especially in sales. How did he handle those unexpected twists and turns?
He was adaptable and willing to adjust course if needed. But the key takeaway here is that planning creates momentum. It sets you up for success.
And then, after all that planning and action, he took it a step further and analyzed his interactions, even the ones that didn't result in a sale. That's something a lot of people overlook, myself included.
He would ask himself tough questions. Why didn't this customer buy? What could I have done differently? He was constantly seeking ways to improve his approach.
He was turning his mistakes into opportunities for growth. That's a powerful mindset.
It's about embracing a continuous improvement cycle: plan, act, analyze, and refine. This is a process that can be applied to any field, not just sales.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from building rapport to creating the right atmosphere to planning and analyzing. Joe Girard had a system for success. But I'm sensing there's even more to unpack.
You're right, there are still some crucial pieces of the puzzle missing. Next time we'll delve into his closing strategies, the specific techniques he used to get that final yes, and we'll explore how he handled objections, because those are inevitable in any sales process.
This is getting good. I'm really looking forward to part 3. Welcome back, everyone. We're in the final stretch of our deep dive into Joe Girard's sales mastery. And I'm excited to finally get to the part where we see how he actually closed those deals.
Yeah.
We've heard about the Ferris wheel, the bird dogs, his unique approach to honesty, all those foundational elements. But now it's time to see those strategies in action.
This is where it all comes together. After all that groundwork, building rapport, creating a comfortable atmosphere, strategically guiding the conversation, the moment of truth arrives, closing the deal.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter how great your system is if you can't get the customer to say yes at the end of it all.
Yeah.
So how did Joe Girard handle that crucial moment? Did he have any high-pressure tactics? Or was there some kind of secret handshake technique?
Actually, his approach to closing was quite subtle. He didn't believe in using those aggressive tactics that make people feel trapped or pressured. Remember, his philosophy was, let him, don't make him.
Right. He wanted the customer to feel empowered to make their own decision. So I'm guessing he wasn't exactly the type to slam his fist on the desk and demand a signature.
Not at all. He was a master of reading people and sensing those subtle buying signals. A nod, a smile, maybe a question about financing options. These were the cues that told him the customer was leaning towards a yes.
I guess it's like being a detective, looking for those tiny clues that reveal their true intentions.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how much can be communicated non-verbally.
Exactly. And once he sensed that opening, he would gently guide them towards the close by asking a leading question. He might say something like, so what color do you think would look best in your driveway?
It's so subtle. He's not directly asking them to buy the car, but he's planting that seed in their mind. They're already picturing themselves driving that car home. He's shifting the focus from if to when.
That's exactly right. He was a master of framing the conversation and guiding their thoughts in a particular direction. And when he presented the offer, he made sure to emphasize the value the customer would receive, not just the features of the car.
So he wasn't just selling a product, he was selling a solution to their needs and desires. It's a much more nuanced approach than just focusing on price or specs.
Exactly. But of course, not every sale goes smoothly. There are always going to be objections, concerns about price, features, maybe even just a general reluctance to commit. How did Joe Girard handle those inevitable roadblocks?
I'm sure he had some tricks up his sleeve. Did he just try to bulldoze his way through those objections? Or did he take a more diplomatic approach?
He actually had a very specific strategy for addressing those objections. First and foremost, he would listen attentively, making sure he truly understood the customer's concerns. He wasn't just waiting for his turn to talk, he was genuinely trying to see things from their perspective.
That's so important. Feeling heard and understood can make all the difference in diffusing a tense situation. It shows that you respect their concerns, even if you don't necessarily agree with them.
And then, once he understood their point of view, he would calmly and respectfully address the objection, offering a solution or a counterpoint. He might explain a feature in more detail, offer a different model that better suited their needs, or perhaps find a way to work within their budget constraints.
So he was treating those objections as opportunities to learn more about their needs and tailor his approach accordingly. He wasn't getting defensive or dismissive.
Exactly. He understood that objections weren't personal attacks. They were simply expressions of the customer's needs and desires. And by skillfully addressing those concerns, he could often turn a hesitant prospect into a happy buyer.
This is all making me realize how much psychology is involved in sales. It's not just about being a smooth talker. It's about understanding human behavior and using those insights to guide the conversation.
It's a delicate dance, and Joe Girard was a master choreographer, but his system didn't end with the sale. We've talked about his commitment to post-sale analysis, And he took that even further by emphasizing the importance of building long-term relationships with his customers.
So he wasn't just trying to make a quick buck and then move on to the next customer. He was building a loyal following.
Exactly. He understood that a happy customer was the best advertising he could get. He would send thank you notes, birthday cards, even make follow-up calls just to check in and see how they were enjoying their new car.
He was treating his customers like friends, not just transactions. And those relationships would pay off in the form of repeat business and referrals.
Right. He created a cycle of loyalty and trust that benefited both him and his customers. It's a powerful reminder that building strong relationships is essential for long-term success in any field.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Joe Girard's sales secrets. I feel like I've learned so much about not just selling cars, but about human nature and the art of persuasion.
It's been a fascinating journey. His story is a testament to the fact that anyone, regardless of background or education, can achieve extraordinary results with the right mindset, a solid system, and a genuine desire to connect with people.
As we wrap up, I want to touch on some of the key takeaways we can all apply to our own lives, whether we're in sales or any other field. First and foremost, we've learned the importance of having a system, a structured approach to achieving your goals.
And that system should be built on genuine relationships. People are more likely to do business with people they like and trust.
We've also seen how crucial it is to be adaptable and willing to adjust your approach based on the situation. There's no one-size-fits-all solution to every problem.
And finally, we've learned the power of continuous improvement. Analyze your successes and failures, learn from your mistakes, and always strive to be better.
We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Joe Girard and his unique sales philosophy. We'd love to hear your thoughts and how you plan to apply these principles to your own life.
Connect with us on social media or email us. Let's keep the conversation going.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep diving deep.